This is the 20th season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, AFTCO, Pro Guide Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing, and Bassmaster Open's EQ week rolls on with a guy who is, he's a professional angler who just decided, hey, let's just go fish 9 tournaments, make a lot of money, catch a lot of big fish, and transition from the BPT over to the Bassmaster Elite Series. He made it look we'll talk about it. From the outside, he made it look easy. I did see him walk off stage one day where things did not look easy, but there's a cool story. He doesn't even know about this, that I talked to a guy about this, but it is none other than Dakota Ebare. Dakota, thanks for jumping on BTL.
You bet, man. Thanks for having me, as always.
I brought you in. I made it sound easy. Did it feel easy? You've been one of the hottest anglers in professional fishing for the last couple of years, and then you roll over, one and done, 9 tournaments, 7th place, Bassmaster Elite Series 2025. Here we go.
Yeah, it sounds all good, man. But you know as well as I do, there was nothing easy about it, man. It was a fight the entire year, and it just it was a lot of fun, man. Honestly, I'll be able to look back and reflect on this fall, and really see hopefully how much I grew as an angler, both on and off the water. I mean, it was a challenge for sure. It was a growing year, I'll say that.
What do you mean by growing, as an angler? Are you talking about techniques? Are you talking about decision making? Are you talking about on the water stuff, or are you more talking about growing mentally and kind of belief in yourself as an angler?
A little bit of it all, definitely a little bit of everything. I mean, you pretty much touch on every part of that, really. Decision making for sure. Dealing with adversity when things go wrong, not letting that completely, I always say this, not letting a bad day turn into a bad tournament turning into a bad year. I always say that. And I had to deal with that a lot this year. I had a bad tournament or two. I had a bad day or two. I had a bad moment or 3 or 4, at the end of the day, though, it all worked out. I feel like I got better, though, for sure. It was definitely a challenge competing against those guys. I mean, they are some phenomenal anglers up and coming, and there's some of them that didn't make it that definitely will be on the Elite Series and at the top of the sport in the next few years.
I want to go back to the very beginning, the very first day of the 2024 Bassmaster Open EQs, Lake Okeechobee, fishing a little funky. I was in that disaster and whatever that one part of the lake was where there were 160 boats in there, and you had
the Scott Martin show there.
Yeah, the Scott Martin show. None of us really knew it was Scott, though, because he was in a white Skeeter that wasn't wrapped, and it took a minute before, why is this drone consistently over us for 4? Then we realized it was Scott catching 30 pounds 50 yards behind us. Long story short, you had the Kings of Bass TV crew following you. You had just made a last-minute decision to come fish the Bassmaster Opens to qualify for the Elite Series, and I think when I saw you, you had 2 for 3 pounds. You come in after that first day and you're in 128th place with 8 pounds, 15 ounces. Talk me through that, because dude, it seems like this year you had an uncanny ability to come back with just mega sacks when you needed them at the most.
Man, I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and throw that one as a blessing from the good Lord above, because I'm telling you, man, I mean, I can't even describe what I felt like after day 1 at Okeechobee. I mean, here I am. I just, my 2 years on the Bass Pro Tour was actually really good for my brand. I mean, I will say that. I was very fortunate to make a lot of money, but way more important than that, I was able to kind of establish some really good business relationships with Strike King and Lew's and Bass Pro Shops and Nitro Boats. I mean, this was my first year with Bass Pro Shops and Nitro Boats, and they signed me, basically as a Bass Pro Tour angler. And then I'm like, oh, by the way, I'm not fishing the Bass Pro Tour. I'm going to fish the Opens. Are you guys okay with that? And they were like, I guess, I mean, we're a big sponsor of the Bass Pro Tour, but if you feel like, that's what you need to do, then we're going to, support it. But I basically probably had 1 year to make it. There was just a lot of pressure on those situations. And I felt like it was my responsibility to get back to the top of the sport, to be able to represent the people that believed in me to sign me in the first place, to be able to represent them at the top of the sport. So I just put a lot of added pressure on myself to make it happen and make it happen fast. And day one at Okeechobee, being in 128th place was about as low as it can possibly get. There's no doubt about that. It was a pretty rough feeling.
Talk me through the 23-pound effort on the next day, because, I feel like fishing is a lot like baseball. And when it comes down to when you're making the playoffs, like those last couple games to get into the wild card, like there's a lot of emphasis on that. But, whether you've got a 1-game lead or you're down a game to make that game that you played back in May counts the exact same as the game you're playing in September or in October to get in. And if you had not had a 23-pound bag, jumped up into 33rd place, cashed a check, jumped 100 spots in the standings, I just looked at it. I mean, you made the Elite Series by less than 100 points, just another 9 or 10 pounds on day 2. And dude, you're on the outside looking in.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. It's crazy how, the season can come down to one fish. I mean, at 9 tournaments and all those days on the water, it comes down to one fish, one moment that decides the difference in the season. But yeah, so to talk through that day, I had like another 8 or 9 pounds at probably 1 o'clock. I'm just going to say 1 o'clock. I'm doing it maybe 3. I don't know.
Like, this is day 2. Like, you've got 2 hours left to fish, and you're fixing to drop a 150 on the board to kick things off.
That's where I'm at with
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because I knew the tournament was going to be won in that area that we were all in. Like, I knew it was going to be won, and I was able to get those fish to bite in practice, but for whatever reason, I could not get any traction on day 1 and on day 2 of the tournament. I just could not get them to bite. I was fishing too fast. I was just rushing through there, and I just couldn't get any traction doing that. But if you remember, there a big cold front had blew through right there, I think the first day of the tournament. And it didn't necessarily affect some of those spawning fish, but it did affect the topwater bites some. And before that cold front hit, there was a really good topwater bite going on. And I felt like the cold front had probably knocked it back. And that happened, I think, the day before, the night of, the night before the tournament started.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was reluctant to bail on those little offshore bedding fish, or whatever you want to call them, that area, and go to those topwater fish because I didn't feel like they would bite with the cold front. Well, fast forward to day 2, 1 o'clock. I've got a couple hours left to fish. And I reached a point where I'm like, man, I have no other option other than go and try to catch some fish on topwater and do something different. And so I gambled and I ran like 30 minutes away, 45 minutes away. And I don't know, it was like a 30-minute run from where I was. Ran down there with like an hour and a half left to fish, and I catch a 4.5, a 4.5, and an 8 something back to back to back on topwater. And I mean, just changed, obviously the outcome of the whole event and probably my entire season. That was the 8-pounder right there that I caught. And I mean, I just, there's no way of describing that feeling whenever all that transpired the way that it did. I mean, that was from going from the lowest of lows to the highest of highs, and knowing that I could have saved my season on day 2 of the first event of the year. I mean, it was just an unbelievable experience and just really a blessing, honestly.
Have you gone back and watched that Kings of Bass episode on the Strike King YouTube?
I think I've definitely watched that clip over and over
again.
Dude,
you need to go watch that whole episode, like now in hindsight, now that it's all said and done. It's it's badass.
Dude, I definitely I'm gonna go back through and actually watch all of the episodes just to kind of reflect on what I can do better, both with the production stuff because we're gonna continue shooting content. But yes, that moment right there, what you're watching right there, may have been the highlight of my fishing career right
Watch
there.
this. You don't know what to do, so you box this fish, and like you literally start doing hot laps around the boat. Watch this. Here
Oh,
you
dude,
are. You're talking about. I don't have the audio just because
yeah.
it tends to tweak. You're gonna talk about how you caught it, but watch this. Now you're just gonna kind of mosey around now for a while. You're gonna walk up to the
Put
front.
my
You're
poles
gonna
down,
you're
and then
gonna run to the
I'm like,
back. You have no idea what's going on right now.
well, I put my poles down and I was like, all right, I got a cull, because
Okay.
I didn't know, like, I don't know. I'm weird. I didn't know if I want to make sure I didn't break a damn rule for like not culling
Oh
immediately or
yeah, yeah,
something,
yeah, yeah.
So I was just like, all right, let me put my poles down real quick. And then like, I got to get back here and cull. But then I literally didn't have my breath, man. Man, like I said, like that, it's crazy. Like in all the big tournaments that I've been in and all the special moments that I've had on the water, that moment right there is probably the number one moment of my best memory ever on the water of like a fish catch in a tournament, bar
Oh,
none,
that was a
right
hell
there.
of a call. That was like a 6-pound call.
Probably more than that. It was probably like because I culled probably a pound and a half or like a 1.5 with an 8 something.
Hold on, let
Yeah,
me look and see what that one fish did for you.
yeah.
Was that one fish? So
I think
let's
I
say
went.
you
I
had
think
31, so you would have had 23.
I had 23 and change, and I caught a 4-pounder right before that. So I would say I was probably somewhere around. I think I was around maybe 12 pounds or so. 12. I was around 12 or 13 pounds with the 4-pounder. Then I caught that one, culled up to probably 21 pounds or so,
Mm-hmm.
and then I caught another 4.5 right after I caught that 8-pounder, and it culled out another little one. So that put me to 23 and change.
That decision to make that move, you said it was what, about a 30-minute run?
Yeah, it was like a 30-minute run. Yeah.
Do you make that decision 4 years ago?
And it was a 30-minute run the opposite way from takeoff.
Yeah. Do you make that, like looking back at your career 4 years ago, do you make that same decision?
Probably not. Probably not. I mean, I hope that obviously I'm getting better at making decisions, right? I mean, like I hope.
Yeah, that's the whole point. That's why
Hopefully that was a mature decision in that moment, but really it was a huge gamble. I mean, huge gamble. But then again, I didn't feel like it because like I guess I missed this detail. Like, man, the entire event, I had this gut feeling of go throw that top water. Like, quit worrying about the cold front, slow down a little bit, go throw the top water. Go. And like, I kept ignoring it and ignoring it. And finally, I didn't have any choice, really. I felt like on day 2 at, midday, I'm like, it's not going to happen. Like, it's not, it's not going to happen for me. And I've got to go do something different. I was like, I can't ignore this anymore. Like I reached a point where I said, if I stay here and die, I'll never let myself live it down that I didn't go try something else. And so that's why I left. But I knew it's so hard to leave an area that the tournament's going to be won in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's going to be won there. And I know how it's going to be won. And
Mm-hmm.
I know I have the ability to catch him that way. Just it wasn't working for me. I can't even describe, like, I just couldn't get him a bite, man. It was crazy. And I did break off 2 really big ones on day 1, and I don't really know why or how I broke them off. Like, one was on a daggum rage worm right at the boat. Like, I'm just swimming it before I just got there. It was like my 5th cast, and a giant comes up and eats it like slack, like as I was taking it out of the water, and I didn't have a choice but to slackline her. Like, I accidentally did it, just jacked up first thing in the morning and broke her off. And then I broke off another really big one on a bed. And really, like, it's funny that it's just been it was one of those years where, like, man, just silly stuff like that happened. Like, you just, like, I don't know. There was a lot of adversity this year. There really was. Like, there were so many tournaments where I finished, or I say so many tournaments, but there were several tournaments where I finished 30th or something, or whatever. I finished like mid check range, but I felt like I was so close to. I should have been in the top 10. it's just like little crap just kept going wrong like all year long, or I break down or this or that, heck, I mean, day one at Lake Martin. I mean, I was done fishing at 1 o'clock. Had to troll 3.5 hours back to the ramp. I mean, it was just stuff like that the entire daggum
You had to
year.
come back at Eufaula too. You had didn't you catch a big one at Eufaula? You came back, you finished, an ounce out of a check, but that's where you lose the battle but win the war there.
Yeah, I think, I did actually. And Eufaula. So I had a culinary with that day, and we just like both of us were just blown away. I had 2 of them that were like 5+ come off at the boat. One of them in my hands on day 2. And I hate to be the guy that like talks about lost fish, and I normally never do.
I'm asking about them.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just I don't know. Like I just couldn't explain like how. It wasn't like I felt like I was doing anything wrong, I just, man, things just didn't go my way a lot of times. And I just had to fight and claw for every single place that I got, every single finish that I had, It was just one of them years,
Yeah. And then reverse, as we kind of work our way through the year, it looked like you had a stranglehold on it at Leech after day 1. We had a day that was postponed with the wind and the weather that came through. You had a camera. You went out in the top 10. And I think everyone, that biggest shock was, it went from, okay, there's a spot, like Dakota's in, no problem. And then you come in with 1 fish on day 2, which quite frankly, nobody saw coming. And that put you like really having to fight for it in the last 2. Did that kind of spin you out a little bit?
It didn't. The tournament didn't spin me out. It really got me in gear. Like, I mean, it was a reality check. It was like, hey, you better find the gear and find it quick and figure out a way to make it happen. These last 2 events, like it didn't spin me out. It got me in gear, if anything. And Leech, man, and that was one of the most disappointing, frustrating tournaments that I've had in a long time, in a sense that like I felt like that tournament set up for me to at least get second in. Like, I don't know that I could have beat Easton on his home pond, because
I don't think anybody was beating Easton.
No, but I should have been in second in that tournament. And I'll say I didn't prepare myself good enough for that tournament. I feel like I got a little lazy, and then like in practice, my biggest bite in practice was shallow. I caught 2 5+ pounders in practice. Smallmouth. Yeah. And they were shallow. And I never expanded on it. I said, I'm going to find, all these offshore boulders, and because that's the winning fish were out there in that deeper stuff that I was fishing. But the problem was every one of them that didn't get caught on the first day of the tournament and weighed in had already been caught in practice. And I think most guys that were doing that struggled both days, or struggled the second day at least. And we all kind of just cannibalized ourselves. Guys that were able to, one, either have a couple rocks to themselves, or a couple little spots to themselves that other people didn't have, or guys that figured out just a little bit different way of getting on a bite, or the shallow deal. And that was the 3 things that I definitely didn't capitalize on. I just I let myself die doing the same thing as everybody else. And I was really pissed off about that.
Yeah. Your camera boat driver, or your cameraman, not your camera boat driver, your cameraman for that event. I've known him for a while, and I said, how was your day? I saw him at the weigh-in afterwards, and he goes, I was with Dakota today. And I said, how'd that go? And he goes, ultimate professional. He goes, I could tell that he was not having a good day. Said he lost his hat, said he didn't catch any fish. It just wasn't going his way. He goes, I've been with guys that it would just have been a miserable day on the water. He goes, that guy's a pro. He goes, that dude gave me everything I wanted. He still talked. He still was positive. He's like, I know that he was probably losing his mind. He goes, that dude's a freaking pro. He goes, that was a hell of a day for one fish.
Dude, I worked my butt off so hard that day. I mean, I ran every single rock that I had hundreds of rocks. Dude, I mean, I ran every one of them that I thought had a bass on it twice. You know, I hit them for different angles. I hit them with different baits. I did everything I could, man. I was like running from one spot to the other, like doing, and not just spinning out, but like knowing that eventually I'm going to get one of these big ones to fire, you know. And I had one other bite that I hooked up with for a second and come off, and that's literally the only 2 bites I had doing it all day. And I was so frustrated that I didn't expand on what I knew was going on, and I didn't prepare myself better for that event. Like that event was so in my wheelhouse, it was unfreaking believable. You know, like this event at Lake Martin, not really. Like I just fished well at Lake Martin. I made good decisions. I fished well, and I had a good finish. That is not my, like, that situation and that place and the way it was all going down. Like that wasn't really my. I mean, I'm not bad at it, but it's not. It didn't set up like Leach did. Like Leach, I should have blasted them at Leach, and I'm so daggone mad that I didn't.
I kind of pointed out all these things. I wasn't trying to harp on like the tough days. What I was showing was, man, you had like 4 or 5 out of the 9 tournaments, like totally things where you could have pointed to and been like, that's what did me in. Like, you know, that one was tough to come back from. And every single time you freaking bounce back on it. And then you actually got to have a little bit of a victory lap there on the last couple days at Martin. Just talk a little bit about the feeling of actually, like you said, putting it out there with your sponsors, the deal. And when you finally weighed in and they handed you the plaque and then the check, and they were like, dude, 2025 Elite Series, congratulations, what that was like.
Man, I'm just now getting to really kind of like let it soak in and appreciate, like not appreciate, but like enjoy the moment. You know, I mean, everything was just happening so fast, and we were filming the Kings of Bass episode, so it was constantly like interview this, interview that, do this, do that, and like and at the same time, like I actually feel like I have a chance to win the event and go to the Classic, so I'm trying to focus on that. I'm trying not to get wrapped up in the points thing, because I'm like, all right, look, as soon, you know, like I actually, you know, I fished that event pretty aggressively. Like I knew that I could probably go catch 8 to 9 pounds a day out deep. And I knew that would probably get me to the elites. And I never went to those fish on day one. And that was thanks to that big bite that I got first thing in the morning. Like I had an area that I seen in practice. I didn't even really fish it. I just said, look, if this is a good area for me to throw a topwater in. If I can get a big bite, it'll set me up for the rest of the event. And so I did that on day one. I got that big bite, totally scrapped my entire game plan, and said, I'm gonna throw a jig the rest of the day. And that's what I did. And I did something I didn't even do in practice. Like I didn't throw a jig around late downs the entire time in practice. And so I catch that big one first thing in the morning and said, all right, I'm not going I'm not going to my deep fish. I'm going to sit here and throw a jig on these laydowns the rest of the day and see what happens. And I catch, enough to be in, 3rd place or whatever. And then on day 2, I couldn't get the shallow bite going. So I had to go to those deeper fish, and they actually kind of saved me. And I had enough to make the elites, but the deeper fish saved me and got me through to make it to the top 10. On day 3, I stayed shallow again. But, that tournament, it was just, there was so much like emotion involved in that and everything. Like it was almost just like a whirlwind, like I've had to take a couple of days. Today when I was sitting in the deer stand, I kind of finally got a sense of like just a sense of like just thankfulness. And I don't even know how to describe it. Like words can't describe the feeling of this, man. Just with so much pressure that I put on myself, and then finally like having that relief and that weight off my back, it's a dang good feeling.
I don't think you've ever really talked about this. It is a personal decision, but like how much importance do you put on walking across the classic stage in your career and fishing in a Bassmaster Classic? Like, was that like the driving force?
I'm not going to say it was a driving force, but it was a big part of it, every time I've ever had to work all the classics that I've worked since 2019, whenever I think 19 or 18 was the year that I won in Knoxville. Was that 18 or 19? I don't know.
I think it was 18.
That was the first classic.
No, it might have been 19.
I think it was 19. That was actually the first classic that I got to go to. And I had to work that one, and every classic that I've worked since then, and of course I've always watched them, so it's always been the pinnacle of the sport, but I just never got the opportunity to go to one, right?
Yeah.
But like every time I've been in a classic, I'm like, man, I've got to get on this stage one day. Like if my career will never be complete if I don't get on the stage, and I want to win. I want to win it, So if you're not there, you don't even have the opportunity to win it. So it was definitely a big, I guess, motivator to pursue this. But I'm not gonna say that it was, the driving force. Not just one event. My thing is that like I just want to be able to represent these business partners and companies that believe in me, that I work with, to the best of my abilities, and having a good platform to do that is key. And the Elite Series just has that prestige about it. I mean, it always has. And if it survived the last 5 years, I don't think it's going anywhere. That's one thing about it. And I think it's as strong as ever. I think all the drama and the negativity and stuff is a lot of that is I don't know. I just think it's not. It's what we hear about because it's social media, and that's the way social media is. But it's still the Elite Series. It's still prestigious. A lot of that stuff is smoke and mirrors, and people just.
I mean, just straight up, it's still the damn classic. It's what you grew up pretending. I mean, like, dude, I've never fished it, but I mean, when I was 10 years old, I was tying my freaking fishing line in the backyard to a tree, pretending I was catching a Bassmaster Classic fish. I mean, that's what it comes down to. It's like ingrained in you. At least for me, it was.
Yeah. Well, man, I mean, like, at the end of the day, like it's about, like I said, it's about just me being able to have the opportunity to be successful as a professional angler, both on and off the water, and what's cool about our industry right now, as much, turmoil as it can be in and all this stuff, like, man, there's a lot of different ways to be successful in this sport right now. I mean, you have a very successful podcast here at Bass Talk Live. You've seen guys like Josh Jones be very successful at targeting big fish and having a phenomenal client base and doing really well for himself in that way. You've got, the Milliken that built up his brand through YouTube and all that stuff. I mean,
instructional guiding.
Yeah, there's all these different avenues to be successful in this sport. For me, I just want to compete against the best anglers out there. I really do truly enjoy fishing in tournaments. I enjoy the pressure. I enjoy the decision making. I enjoy the hard times because they make you better. Like I enjoy the challenge of going to all these lakes and doing this. It drives me. It motivates me to get better. And not necessarily like, I want to compete against the best doing it, but like, man, it's always a new ball field. Like we always have you know what I'm saying? Like how cool is that? That we can go and compete in a sport where not only are you competing against the best, but you're competing against the elements and the environment and things changing and the weather. It's just it's fun, man. Our workplace is a new field every day, and I love that. So that's where I want to be able to represent and work with my sponsors and my business partners to be able to, represent them doing this, but doing it at the highest level possible. And Bass does provide a really good stage for that, I feel like. And I'm excited to be a part of it.
Dude, that blows my mind that, I mean, that's a big deal. Bass Pro Shops, the whole 9 yards. And then you like roll in and you're like, hey man, like, I've been thinking about it, and I know that like everything's like pretty much done, but I can get into all 9, and I'm just gonna go that route. Like, I mean, dude, like you were kind of a late addition to the EQs.
Yeah, like
it was a shocker. Like, I mean, I got calls. It was like, did you see Dakota Ebare on the list for the EQs? Like, what the heck is up with that? Like, that's ballsy, man.
I think Ronnie told this story on live, so I think I think I can say this how this went down. But man, I'll be honest with you, I mean, it is what it is. So I was eating supper at my neighbor's house at like 9 o'clock at night, and it had been wearing on. This is mid-January. Yeah. Like we're 2 weeks before Toledo Bend Bass Pro Tour event, and I had been it had been wearing on me the entire off season. I mean, I spent countless days in a deer stand and like the entire time it was just eating at me that I was like, man, like you need to make a change. Like it was just in the back of my mind. Like I felt like I was just really being led to like, hey, look, you need to change. Like you need to do something different. You need a fresh start. You're kind of getting burnt out. Like you need a fresh start. Go do this. And like I just kept kind of ignoring it. We passed the entry deadline for the opens and all that stuff. And we had a meeting or something with the Bass Pro Tour, and I just wasn't like, I don't know. I was just like, man, I
Just
just
weren't
don't want
feeling
it.
it.
I just wasn't feeling it. I was
Yeah.
like, man, the format got changed back, and I wasn't feeling it. And look, and yet again, I'm gonna say this for the 1,000th time. Like my 2 years on the Bass Pro Tour exponentially helped out my career. So for guys that just qualified for the Bass Pro Tour, some of them are friends of mine. Like the opportunities are there for you to be successful and have, like there's a lot of opportunities.
You know, 100%. I ain't asking you to dig into that. Just
I don't want
business decision.
but I just don't want people to get the wrong vibe about
I
that.
got you.
You know what I'm saying? Like I think it's very important to be transparent. Like I'm not sitting here crying about my 2 years on the Bass Pro Tour because there is a lot of
pay a lot of money.
For sure. Like there was just some principal things that I just didn't align with, and it was like, look, man, like I just want to do something different. I want to go to the Classic. I want to fish the Elite Series. Let's try it.
Picked up the phone and called Bass.
So I called Ronnie Moore at 9:00. I was at dinner, and I'm like, I quit eating my food. I told my neighbor, I was like, man, I can't eat. I was like, I'm going to make a phone call. He's like, you're what? I was like, yeah, I'm calling Bass. I was like, man, if there is like, I just can't take this anymore. I said, if there's any way that I can get in the Elite Series at this point, or in the Elite Series, if there's any way that I can get in the opens at this point in the venture, then it's meant to be, and I'm doing it. I'm not fighting myself anymore about it. Like, so I called Ronnie Moore, and I was like, Ronnie, I said, this is kind of a crazy question. I appreciate you answering the phone this late at night. I said, but look, man, I really mean this. Like, if there is any way possible that anybody drops out in the next couple of days of the opens, I will pay you for all 9 right now. Like, I will send my check to Bass. Like, please let me in. I swear I'm in. Like, I'm in. Like, if you can just, if there's any way in hell that I can get in this thing, like, let me know. And he's like, dude, you're crazy. Like, there's no way. Like, it's January.
Yeah.
We're 2 weeks out from the first event. Like that's probably not going to happen. He's like, but I'll make some phone calls and I'll see where we're at. And he said, I'll call you back in the morning. And sure enough, he called me back in the morning. He said, you're not going to believe this, but there's one spot open that we will give you for all 9 of them, but you have to pay for all 9 and you got to commit to all 9. I was like, checks in the mail. Done.
So you had paid BPT deposits, had like housing set up for the BPT season, the whole 9 yards.
I'd already paid for houses at the BPT, yeah, for sure. And I paid my deposits for the BPT. And so I'm probably not supposed to say this, but whatever, I'll give them credit or whatever. So MLF did work with me on that, and we transferred the money that I'd already paid from my Bass Pro Tour events
to the
invitationals, and I still fish those. So I mean, I got to give them, I don't know if that's probably some legal crap that I shouldn't have said, but whatever. Hey, I mean, hats off to them. Like they could have kept my money. I think they legally could have kept my money, and they didn't. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. Like seriously. So yeah, well,
that's a hell of a story, Dakota.
Yeah, probably one we shouldn't have told.
I mean,
I like
you
being real with
what
people.
You were doing. There's 100, there's 180, soon to be 165. There's 180, there's 165 now because the year's over. Professional anglers at the very top level, and you voluntarily opted to leave one to go to a place where guys like Brett Hite and Brandon McMillan and Randall Tharp and Russ Lade have been stuck in purgatory fishing for $3,800 a tournament for a check, believing in yourself, doing what you thought you needed to do in your heart. And I say that because those are top caliber 10, 20 Bassmaster Classics $1 million earners who are the best in the freaking business at it, who haven't been able to get out in a couple years.
Man, like I don't want to get too spiritual with this, but I'm gonna be honest with you. Like I couldn't have done it without that. Like I really felt like I was being like I felt like God was telling me, like, this is what you need to do. Like, I'm directing you this way. Like, this is the path that I'm opening for you. Like, here you go. Like, I truly believe that. Like, I really, really do. There's been so many times in my career where I reached a point where the door was closed and somehow like another one opens and I continue on about my way. Like, if we've talked about this before on your episodes, like the path of where I came from to where I'm at now, it's just so amazing. Like of the blessings and like the way that things worked out whenever I didn't think they would. Like I didn't think, like just opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. And I just really felt like this was the decision that I was being led to make. Like I felt like God was telling me, hey, like this is the path that you need to go down. And it's not the wide one. Like it's the narrow one, and like and it took an extreme amount of faith to make that decision. Cause like you just said, like you believed in yourself that much to go do that. And truthfully, I don't know that I had all that confidence in myself to do that. Like I wasn't sure, but I did have faith that there's a bigger plan. And I felt like this was the decision I need to make. So I really do feel like that that like it all works out the way it's meant to be. You know what I'm saying? If you follow the plan, like it may not end up the way that you thought it would, but it all works out the way it's meant to be,
and hats off to your sponsors for saying, hey, go get it this year.
Yeah, for sure.
And Strike King even like stepped up and was like, hey, we'll just document every single day.
Yeah,
journey along the way with you and Tristan.
How awesome of a company is that to look at this situation and make lemonade out of freaking lemons? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm like, they look at the situation like, hey, actually, we're not mad about it all. Let's make a really cool story out of it and let's document all of it. And like, so how awesome is that for that company to think about things in that perspective and support the anglers that they work with? I mean, just hats off to them. Like that's the kind of people you want to work with. And there is no doubt about that. Like they showed their true colors whenever they said, you know what, man, we support your decision and we're going to actually, we're going to make a great thing out of it. So don't worry about it. Like how awesome is that?
It is. I work with Tom, Strike King, sponsor of BTL, have been a long time sponsor of BTL. So I definitely like the cutting edge stuff that they're doing. It's really
and hats off to their production crew, man. I mean, they are phenomenal. Like, man, they look, they just do such a good job with all of this. I mean, they're amazing. They really, really are. I mean, the footage is second to none.
I just know I've seen them following you guys around a couple days this year, and I was like, ooh. I was like, man, that is some stress right there. Like Tristan McCormick and stuff a couple times followed around. I'm like, dude, like the man understands, what you got to do, but there's got to be a part of you that's like, oh my God, this is happening. And there's 3 people following me around in a boat watching the dumpster fire.
It wasn't like it did, man. Like it was tough. It was a challenge. Like this is my first year really filming a full series like that. And I've done a bunch of pro team journals with them. I've done a bunch of, other things. And like, I enjoy making the content and everything. And we're going to continue doing some stuff with them. And I think we have some big things in the works for the Elite Series next year.
Oh,
but I
cool.
will say that, man, like I can, I'll say it like this. This is, and I'll change it up a little bit. Shooting deer with a bow is very challenging. Shooting deer on film with a bow is like really, 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 really challenging, especially with someone else in the tree with you. And that's the equivalent of trying to compete in a bass tournament, with a camera crew with you. I mean, because it's just, because there's such a fine line between what, them trying to do their job and you trying to do your job. Like, I can't tell you how many times I was going down the bank at Lake Martin this last week. And they're just kind of trailing me like this, and I all of a sudden, like, I'm going down the bank while I see a rock pile in my perspective mode out to the right, and by the time I stop getting my topwater in, and I cast over here to the rock pile, their boat's on top of it, and it's not that they did anything wrong.
Yeah.
They're, it's not, they didn't know it was there. Heck, I didn't know it was there 5-10 seconds before that, like, But that's a fish, like I won Clark's Hill because I caught a random 8-pounder in a brush pile that I didn't even know was there. And if we're filming that event, there's a boat sitting on top of that brush pile, and that fish never bites. And like, I never really thought about it from all of them angles and stuff. Like, hats off to Brandon Palnick for what he's accomplished with some of the stuff he's done, and Scott Martin and some of these other guys. Like, Brandon especially has killed it with those, with his YouTube series and all that stuff.
Natural.
And still freaking smoked him in these tournaments and stuff. So like, I really got a full dose of what all that was about this year. And man, like, it is a whole nother level of challenge.
You got to go back and find it. It's in the archives. It's a couple years ago. It might have been right after he announced his retirement, but Kevin did an episode with Mercer, and he was talking about how he dealt with the flotillas.
Yeah.
You're probably too young for this, Dakota. How old were you in 2008?
I remember seeing that, man. I really do. Like, I watched all that stuff, like, especially at Toledo Bend, like watching them tournaments. I mean, he had, I don't know how many boats falling around, or Christie at the Classic.
Yeah, we counted one time on Kevin 164.
Yeah.
When we were doing bass zone coverage on the water. But you got to go back and listen to that episode. He talks for like 40 minutes about how he would dissect the areas based on where he could manage the crowd. That beeswax tournament in the back of Lay Lake that he won, where he could kind of manage the crowd, where there was a natural pinch point where he could get back there and then say, hey, I can't tell you where you can and can't go. It's public water, but sure would be nice, stick around this bridge here area and give me the bat. And then he talked about on Kentucky Lake how he would literally run for miles and miles, knowing that all he was doing was like losing spectator boats. And then he wasn't even fishing his good stuff until like 2 p.m. on day 2, because he knew that if he burned it on day 1, it was just amazing how he dealt with the cameras and the spectators and still just dummied everybody.
Unfreaking believable. Like, hats off to them guys. That is so next level. It's unbelievable.
It is. We need to take a break. When we come back, I do want to talk a little bit about the video that you sent me today, because that looked pretty badass.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
And then also I did this yesterday on the show with Emil Wagner. Actually, we're not going to do that with what we did, but I just want to get a general. We actually went through every single fish Emil caught and then broke it down on the percentages of what baits he used throughout the entire year, like on every fish. We're not going to do that, but I was just curious on if there were a couple themes that kind of carried you through bait-wise the 2024 season. So it is BTL with so the first time we've done like a full interview where it's Elite Series Pro Dakota Ebare.
This is my first interview as an Elite Series Pro. Thank you.
Does that sound good? Elite Series Pro Dakota Ebare.
I love it. I love it.
We'll be back right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
This is Gamakatsu's new Nano Alpha line of hooks. If it looks familiar, that's because they are. It's the same shapes and sizes in the round bend and the EWG and in the new Horizon head that you know and love from Gamakatsu, but there are a couple new features with this Nano Alpha, which is this little green label that you see on the packaging. First off, 2 times faster hook penetration. That's because of the Nano Alpha smooth coating on it, and also it is 4 times more corrosion resistant. Check it out, Nano Alpha.
I've been using Sunline Shooter for the majority of my career. Millions of dollars made, lots of bass caught, and the gnarly, gnarly stuff. If you need a abrasion resistant, tough fishing line for the really, really mean stuff, Sunline Shooter is for you.
Beatdown is efficient, rock solid.
100% American made.
This thing is super tough. I mean, this thing is not going anywhere.
I've ran the beat down double stack from Florida all the way up to New York. And the one thing that I know is when I get to my fishing destination, I never have to worry about issues with my graph mount.
Your options are endless with these mounts, but they're steady, they're solid. These are the most reliable mounts on the market, and you can't go wrong with the beat down.
When you're ready to hit the water, Denali Fishing has you covered. Regardless of your skill level, from beginner all the way up to tournament pro, Denali has rods, reels, and tungsten to get the job done. Check them out at denalifishing.com.
All right, welcome back. Talking with Elite Series Pro Dakota Ebare. All right, I did this with Emil. Themes that kind of carried you through 2024. Was there anything like I think Emil? No shocker if you know anything about him. I think like 66% of his fish were either a minnow or a drop shot. Then he'd be like, "Oh, I punched one. I caught one on a jig. I caught one on a spoon." But I mean, that was like he minnowed a drop shot at his way to the Elite Series.
Man, my my biggest moments this year have all been on Topwater.
No way.
Yeah. I mean, a frog.
Yeah.
Throwing a frog at Okeechobee. The Topwater I was throwing at Martin, that was huge.
Yeah, that was a big one. You follow?
You follow. I caught him on a little Topwater, like Splash R.
Any at Leech?
No, that was minnow.
Did anyone catch any topwater fish at Leech that you heard of outside of a frog? Like, was there any like, oh, this 6-pound smallmouth just decimated my freaking spook?
No. Not that I know. You might have could have, but I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, maybe one of the 7 smallmouth in there didn't want to eat it.
Yeah, no, but it was either Topwater or Baby Z2 for me, like all year.
Yeah,
or like a stick worm on Shaky Head.
Yeah, but Topwater.
Yeah, I mean definitely like Okeechobee dominated by Topwater. Eufaula was a Topwater deal.
Catch them at the Mississippi River on Topwater at all?
All of them come on Topwater. Every fish I weigh come either a frog or a top, like on a sexy dog. Most of them are on a frog.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, so 4 of the 9 tournaments were pretty much like big time Topwater tournaments for me.
Half of the tournaments.
What's that?
That's like half of your tournaments.
Yeah, I know. And live scope dominates everything. Like,
dude, do you feel like Topwater is like a little bit under the radar now all of a sudden?
It all is.
But I mean, let's say it's 5-6 years ago, you'd go into a tournament, everyone would be, spooking, buzz baiting, doing all that. Like you don't I'm just thinking back to this year, you just don't drive past many guys that are topwatering now. Like everyone's getting to their minnow and drop shot hole.
Yeah, I talked about that on live. I don't know if they played or not, but I talked about that some. The area that I was fishing at, Martin, I had all to myself, and I would never have had that to myself a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one thing I really like about live scope. I really like about forward facing technology is that's one thing that I can definitely say is a positive thing for our tournaments is because the competition is so much more spread out now. The lakes fish so much bigger. You have opportunities to have stuff to yourself, including stuff on the bank. I had a whole daggum area of laydowns and, beautiful fishable stuff on the bank that had the right quality of fish on it. And I had it all to myself, and I never would have had that stuff to myself a couple years ago before live scope.
All right. I'm still toiling in the opens, so help me out here. What topwaters would you say if you were to take 3 of the Strike King family of topwaters? What are your go-tos right here?
Well, the sexy dog for sure, and then I'm gonna go with the KVD frog, and then that Splash R right there.
The Bitsy or just the normal?
Just the normal one.
Okay. Splash R, and then Are you a big believer when it comes to the Topwater? I know that Sexy Dog, they have the hard knock and all sorts of different, like, are you a big sound guy on your Topwater, or is it more action?
They definitely eat that hard knock up there for sure. I mean, that's what I was throwing. That's what Kevin and I threw whenever we filmed our show on the upper Mississippi. Like we were in pool. We were above. I'll just say we were above 7 because I don't want to give away anybody's. I don't want to highlight any of
I
those
hear
smaller pools up there. But anyways, we were throwing that hard knock, and that was a really good show we filmed with him. And
if you were to just pick one as a, like, if you were to, like, hey, you could only throw one walking bait in one color for the next 3 years,
it's that hard knock right there in the oyster color.
That's why I had it up. I was just curious if
you knew that. That's, I mean, dude,
that oyster color, whoever came up with that, like every once in a while, obviously it started with the Sexy Shad back in 2008,
Right.
2007, 8 there, that Grand Lake tournament. Every once in a while, they'll just hit a banger color, and I feel like they did that with the oyster.
That's it. I mean, that color is lights out, and you can throw it anywhere.
All right. Are you gonna have to not be in the woods as much now? I mean, like, you have a lot of, or are you pretty much dialed in for next year? You got your sponsors, they're all on board. It's just gonna be rigging the boat, or are you gonna be like, hey, like, less deer hunting, more office stuff, getting ready?
I'm fixing to be in the woods. Like, this is my time.
I caught you before you were. That's why this isn't a live show. It's actually live. It's just we literally worked around your deer hunting schedule for this, which I appreciate.
Well, today is my first day to like get back home and go get in the tree. So I mean, you know, it is mid-October and I've only been in the tree like 3 times, and that is not okay. Like, usually I'm in the tree every day starting October 1st, but you know, with the schedule the way that it was, and this last open being in October, it's kind of set me back a little bit. Usually I've already got a couple things killed by now, and all I've killed so far is 2 coyotes and a pig today. So
yeah, you smoked that pig. I think you're the third professional angler that I've been trying to book BTL. Like, I had Lee Livesey on the phone. He's like, hey, hold on a second. Got her. And I'm like, what did we just kill? And he's like, big pig.
yeah. I sent you that video earlier. I was like, you'll probably want to use that in the show.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was a pretty good little video. I'm gonna edit it and post it tonight.
You got any giants like lined up on camera?
There's
like
a couple really good. Yeah, there's a couple really good deer here around my house, and then there's some. I'm gonna do some hunting probably, or I'm actually for sure gonna spend a couple weeks in Illinois, and it's the land of giants up there. It's like Jurassic Park. It's
southern or central?
West Central. Quincy.
I grew up in central Illinois. I grew up in
Quincy.
Decatur, like central Illinois, Macon County.
Gotcha. I've got some really good friends that own a couple farms over there that are nice enough to let me hunt, and they're unbelievable.
Me growing up where I grew up and not deer hunting is the equivalent of growing up on Falcon Lake and being a jet skier.
Yeah. Not.
Like, I lose a lot of respect from hunters when they're like, wait, you grew up where and you've never deer hunted?
That's funny. No, but man, you know, I'll say this. I'm really excited about the off season because definitely going to have some good hunting. Whether or not I kill anything or not, you know, I really don't care. I just really looking forward to getting some downtime in the woods and kind of reflect on the year. I think that's whenever you really can like look back and appreciate everything that happened, and the good stuff and the bad stuff, you know, and it kind of helps me better prepare for the next year. And I feel like it's just my time to kind of get grounded while I'm in a tree. Ironically saying that, but I'm actually really fired up about fishing, man. Like, I'm gonna be a couple weeks without a boat, and I'm like, dang, I kind of want to go fishing. And that's so different than when I was last year. Whenever I left Saginaw Bay, I just had such a bad taste in my mouth for fishing. Like, I was just, after just a couple of things that happened, and I was just kind of just really frustrated with the way things were going. And I just, man, I don't know. And this year I have such a different different feel, you know, and I'm just really, really excited to spend some time on the water in the off season to get better, work on some new techniques, just get better at some old techniques, and just, man, really get dialed in and ready for that first Elite Series event.
February 20th through 23rd, the St. Johns River. Is that a new destination on the Elite? Has the Elite Series been to the St. Johns River before, or is this the first time?
Nah, I don't think so ever. Nah, first time.
An unknown, just a wild card there on the St. Johns River out of Palatka. Great community there. The ones back when I was on location and covering them, always like to go to Palatka. Great fan base. They support the bass fishing. So just giving them a hard time there. But February 20th through 23rd.
That's gonna be awesome. And I've actually only been to the St. Johns River for I fished one tournament there. I fished a Toyota series there. It might even have been a Costa back. It was several years ago. And that's the only time I've been in the St. John's, but I really enjoyed the area, really enjoyed the fishery, and I can't wait to get back there.
All right, well, you need to probably get some sleep, dude, because I would imagine the last 128 hours you've been struggling to get some sleep.
We have been rocking full throttle, but I'm actually still got to cook dinner. I'm going to go to the gym, and then I'm going to be up at bright and early. And
this is your house now, or this is where you live now? I think the first time we did an interview that you had ever been on the show, you were in like a barn that you had just bought or something. Like a tournament money. It didn't look like that.
No. So out back is my other. So I have my boat shed and everything in here, and where I keep my truck and all that stuff. But then out back is where I was living, which is a 30 by 40 shop with a 10 by 10 bedroom and bathroom in it. That's where I lived at before that. And before that, I just really was a bum on whoever.
It's fishing money. Like, you're a guy who put his time in on the water, made enough money fishing to buy land, build a house. Like, I mean, it's fishing money.
It 100% everything that I own is fishing money. I will say
that's pretty cool. There's not many guys that are Steve Kennedying it these days.
The only reason why I say that is because I mean, there's somebody that's going to watch this show that's going to say, man, I'd love to make a living fishing. I'm just telling you right here. The odds have been stacked against me since day one, and somehow it's worked, and it's truly been a blessing. And so as much negativity as you might hear, I'm going to tell you right now, there's plenty of positive things in our industry, and there's a lot of opportunities out there for guys to make a living doing it. And whether, like I said, be creating content or fishing professional tournaments or all that, we have a lot of opportunities in our industry. Our industry has been very good to me on all different sides now, with Major League Fishing and Bass Pro Tour, and now fishing the Elite Series stuff. And like I said, there's a lot of opportunities out there, and it's been very good to me, and I'm very, very, very thankful for it. I cannot stress that enough.
Well, thanks for getting out of the woods and jumping on BTL.
All right, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
See ya. All right. That is Dakota Ebare. Looking forward to seeing how he does as part of a very talented rookie class in 2025. I think we didn't know what to expect from the 2024 rookie class, and they stirred the pot and by all means exceeded expectations. So some big shoes for these 9 guys that are jumping up to the Bassmaster Elite Series in the 2025 season. All right, that's all we got for now. Check basszone.com for the schedule for what we have coming up on BTL, but we'll talk to everybody later. See ya.